Hi, welcome to a 3D Fluff Cinema 4D training video. In this video I'm going to quickly show you how to make a 3D text logo. This is really geared towards people who've never used Cinema before, maybe people completely new to 3D, and you just want to quickly bosh out a quick 3D logo. Okay, so let's dive in. Now just before I start showing you any of the tools, one thing we have to get out of the way is how you navigate in the software. So with your copy of Cinema, if you click this cube icon at the top, that will just add a cube into our scene. Now the navigation is basically 1, 2 and 3 on your keyboard. So if you hold down the number 1 key and then click and drag your mouse, you will find you start panning around in your scene. Now try this again but with number 2. Hold down number 2, click and drag, this will allow you to zoom, and then finally number 3, hold down the key and click and drag your mouse. You can now start orbiting and looking around your scene. So now they're out of the way, we can actually start looking at making our logo. So let's start a new scene. Let's just choose File, New, okay, a nice blank work slate, and have a look at this top toolbar. We're pretty much just going to use two main icons. This orange one with a pen, and this green sort of cube-ish sort of shaped one here. Now what you're going to need to do is click and hold your mouse on the orange icon so that this menu pops up. If you have clicked but the menu didn't appear, watch out, you're going to be in this weird spline drawing tool. If you've accidentally done this, just come over here and click this yellow cross. That will just get you out of this spline drawing mode. Anyway, hold down your mouse on this icon, and what we're going to do is go over to this text object. Add this. And there you go, you should see a bit of text. Feel free whenever you like, by the way, to pan around and look and zoom in so you can see what you're working with. Okay, so here's our text. You can see we have this text object over to the side. But have a look underneath. These are your settings. You've got a nice big text box here where you can type in whatever you like. So don't try typing text in the 3D view, it just doesn't really work that way. Type in whatever you would like down here. I'm going to go for 3D Fluff logo. Watch out, when you hit enter, that's another line of text. Don't hit enter when you're finished, otherwise you're going to start pushing your text further and further up or down. When you're done, press tab. Tab will get you out of that editing window and onto the next setting, which is going to be the font. Now click on the font and have fun. Go choose whatever it is you like. Let's see, what am I going to go for? Let's scroll. I'm going to go for this one here, Magneto, but obviously choose whatever you like, and frankly, whatever you've got installed. Okay, underneath you can have your alignment, so you can see my text here. There's my logo, but my sort of second line of text is all to the left, and I'd rather have it all centered in the middle. So with your text selected, align it to the middle. Okay, there we go. So now I've got this nice centered text. At this point though, all we really have is this flat object. There's no meat to this. We need to give it some depth. So up in your toolbar, look for the first green icon. And as before, hold down the mouse button so that you actually get a menu pop up. If you accidentally add this subdivision surface thing, if you get one of these, delete that. We don't want these. But hold it down and add in an extrude object. Now, this is a bit like folders on a hard drive. These green things are folders. Whatever you put inside, the green thing will do that action to the content. So, if we drag this text object inside the extrude, like putting a file in a folder on your hard drive, that should extrude it. If you're having a little bit of trouble with this, I know some people do struggle slightly. When you're dragging the text object, watch your mouse pointer. You'll either get this left pointing arrow, or, look carefully, a downwards pointing arrow. Down is the one you're after. That's going to put it inside the object. So get them grouped up, and there we go. We should now have our nice 3D logo. But it doesn't look great. You know, it's pretty boring, it's pretty flat, there's no colour, there's no light. So let's get this thing looking a bit nicer, shall we? Click on your extrude and then come down to your settings, and there's really sort of two main things we're looking at. One of them is going to be how far back the extrusion goes, how thick is the text. So if you're looking at your extrude settings, you should have a setting which says movement, and it'll say something like 0, 0, and then depending on what settings you've got for the software, either in millimeters or centimeters. Yours might say 20 or 200, it depends how you've got the software set up. But basically, increase this last number, just type in something bigger, and there you go. You can now choose how thick your text is going to be. But it still doesn't look great. One thing which always makes a 3D logo look a little bit nicer is some rounded beveled edges. So staying on our extrude, jump over to the next tab, this one here which says caps. Caps is referring to the flat surfaces. How is this 3D object capped off? So in other words, the flat front and the flat back, these are the caps. So we don't just want to cap them off, we want to, well, we'll use another bit of terminology here, we want to fillet them. It's basically just a bevel with a fancy name. So on your caps page, start and end, this is going to be the front and the back. So for the start, we do want the cap, but we also want a fillet. So choose the one at the bottom which says fillet cap. There we go. Now we've got these nice sort of beveled edges running around. You'll find you've got two more settings which allow you to tweak this. The radius one is the most obvious. This is going to choose how large or small these bevels are. So if I zoom in here and get nice and close. The radius, if I turn this up and down, you can have big chunky bevels or nice small subtle ones. Just watch out, the more you increase this radius size, the chunkier your text will become. And there will be a point where it just looks a bit silly. So yeah, use your best judgment there. And the other setting is steps. Now, I don't want to get into too many of the details, but all of these surfaces are made of polygons. Flat squares and triangles, basically. And the more steps you have, the smoother things become. So right now we have this simple sort of 45-degree chiseled, beveled look on the edge. If I add, let's say, a few steps, the more we add, the smoother and smoother it becomes. Once you reach about 10, you're not going to notice much difference past there, so maybe stop at about 10 or so. But that will have given us these much smoother, rounder corners to our objects. So just choose a number of steps. Generally, go for either 1 if you want a beveled look, or go for about 10 if you want a nice smooth round look. Okay, but these are quite nice because they will allow you to catch all these nice highlights and glints, which is kind of really the purpose of doing this in 3D to begin with. Okay, so there's our logo. Let's make it look nicer. Now, one of the great things about 3D is you can use light sources. You can illuminate your 3D scenes. So have a look back at your top toolbar again. The very last icon you'll see is this light bulb. Click it. Your scene will probably go quite dark, but that's just because this new light bulb we've added is sort of sitting in the middle, sort of behind the object. So what we need to do is pull this light source further towards us. So do have a look around. Don't sit there with your 3D view completely stationary. It will be confusing about whether this light is in front or behind, above or below. Look around. It'll give you a good idea about where that light is. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull it towards us. We're going to click and drag on this blue arrow so it comes forward. Again, have another look around. We can now clearly see that light is in front of our logo. And probably we might want to raise it up so the light shines down, or maybe you're trying to do something quite dramatic. You could put the light down below underneath the object. So it looks sort of dum-dum-dum, big and dramatic logo. Again, this is going to be down to you. This is just your personal choice. But once you do have a light in there, if you want it a bit more lit, feel free to add another one. There's nothing to stop you from adding a second light and moving this around so it fills in some of those dark areas. So if I raise this thing up on the green arrow, I could now use that to fill in these dark bits. But you know what? I actually quite liked my dramatic dum-dum-dum logo. light down there. So I'll probably stick with this. Okay, so we've got a bit of light. One thing which does make a light more realistic, by the way, is a shadow. Obviously lights cast shadows, but in 3D they don't always. So let's just click on our light, come down to the settings, and kind of in the middle of this page you should see a shadow setting where it says none. Go for either a hard, crisp, detailed shadow or a soft, sort of nice, silky sort of shadow. I'm going to go for a soft shadow. Right. If you want to know how this will look, by the way, in your final export, you've got to keep in mind this 3D view here is just a quick, rough representation. You're only going to see the final look when we do what we call the rendering process. So this first black clapperboard icon, this is your test render button. If you click this, Cinema will show you basically what the final image is going to look like. Okay, so you can see the shadows. That doesn't look too bad. To get rid of this, just click anywhere and Cinema gets rid of the image. Okay, so what we also need to do is have a material. This logo is far too dull. It's just grey and uninteresting. So we're going to apply a coat of paint. Have a look at the bottom of the screen. This is your material area. If you double click your mouse anywhere in this blank area at the bottom, Cinema creates a coat of paint, a material. Now whilst we can change the settings in the corner, to be honest it's a little bit claustrophobic. You can't really see everything you want to change down there. So what I'd recommend you do is double click on the material itself, and you basically get this nice window which is all the same settings but more easy to see what you're doing. So we won't go too far with this, we'll keep it quite straightforward. The main setting you should have selected is this colour setting at the top, so feel free to choose a colour. You can use these RGB sliders to pick a colour for your material, or again depending on the version of the software you're using you may see these HSV sliders, so you can toggle between RGB and HSV at the top. But choose whichever these systems you prefer, pick a colour, choose something you like, something around there, nice deep dark purple. Okay, and when you're happy with this, move this out of the way, just drag and drop this thumbnail onto your 3D model. Okay, there we go, so we've applied our, in my case here, a purple texture. But it's not that interesting. It's a bit bland. A bit of reflection would be nice. Maybe some roughness to the surface. So there's a bit of texture. So let's just delve down a little bit deeper. Let's go down to our reflectance settings. This is basically how shiny things are going to be. So it's a bit tricky. This is not the easiest set of settings. What I generally suggest is where you see this default specular thing, hit the remove button. Get rid of it. We don't really want it. What we're going to do is we're going to add a real reflection. Click add. And now unfortunately we've got a big old choice of weird technical terms. You know what? Just choose the one at the top of the list. They're all so similar that you don't have to worry about it too much. Let's just go for Beckman. Okay, now what we've got here is a chrome object. So all of our purple has sort of disappeared. We're left with this shiny chrome sparkly thing, which if chrome sparkly metallic textures is what you're after, great, we're finished. But let's assume it's not. There's sort of a couple of settings in here we might want to change. The first one is just going to be the strength of the reflection. So when we added Beckman, this gave us layer number 1. This is our reflection. If we turn this down, we can basically sort of blend between the matte original purple and our shiny chrome material. So somewhere in between, somewhere around here, we'll have this looking as shiny as we want it and as purple as we want it. But again, you do you choose your own colours. Now I will just say, whilst doing this, I'm starting to think, maybe I should have added some light on top because this is going very dark around the edge. Again, maybe you like this, It's not a bad look, but I'm starting to think that's a bit dark. So I am just going to very quickly add another light, and I'm probably just going to move it straight up. There we go. I've now got a bit of light shining down, illuminating the top of my text, so it looks purple instead of black. Okay, anyway, back to our reflection. So this slider is how strong it is. What you also have in here is roughness. How polished is the surface going to be? The default is a perfectly pristinely polished bit of text. So lots of nice, crisp, detailed reflections. You can add some roughness. If we add maybe 10, 20% roughness, this will just sort of soften all those reflections and sort of blur them out a little bit. So again, just play around with this to taste. You've got a very rough reflection, or you can go sort of nice and crisp and detailed. So again, just do it until you're happy, basically. I'm going to go for maybe 3% roughness. Okay, that should do for that for now. The last thing we might have a look at, though, is some sort of surface texture. So we've chosen a colour. We've chosen how reflective it should actually be, but it's all perfectly flat. There's no bumpiness. We can add some if we want. What you're going to want to do is grab yourself a web browser. Oops, that's a big web browser. Ooh, comments. And just find a picture. So I'm going to Google, let's say, I don't know, a wood texture. Apparently I can't spell wood, but that's fine. Okay. Find an image of the texture you like. I'm probably just going to go for this bit of wood over here. That's fine for me. And I'm simply going to save that into a folder. Well, actually, I'll tell you what, I'll just throw it onto my desktop. Let's be lazy, shall we? Ooh, do I want to save it? Yes, I do. Okay. Right. So once you've found a picture you like, go down to bump. This is basically how bumpy the surface is going to be. We'll turn this on. And over here, we have the option for a texture. If you hit this giant button in the middle, Cinema will ask you to go and find your texture. So I'm going to go, actually I'll tell you what, I've already got a textures folder. Let's just grab one of my ready-made ones. So I'm going to go for textures. Here's all of the stuff I've been collecting over the years. Let's see, what should we do? I'll tell you what, let's go for a fabric. Changed my mind. So I'm going to load in this sort of blue textured fabric. Now the colour isn't important, by the way. All that Cinema is going to do is pick out the texture, the roughness that this surface has. So don't worry about the colour of it. I'm going to basically take that pattern, open. If Cinema asks you about copying the file, just say no, just leave the file where it is. Okay, and now this will have added that sort of, in this particular case, that cloth roughness into my material. But if you want to get a brickwork pattern or some wood grain, just choose whatever image you like. Okay, so that will probably do us for the material. Let's close that window down. But you might notice this doesn't really look like cloth. I've just got this big wibbly wobbly material on the fronts, and I've got this horrible sort of grainy stretched thing on the edges. What we've got to worry about now is how does Cinema take that texture we gave it, and how does it sort of apply onto the surface? Where does it go? Is it a big texture? Is it a tiny texture? Well, we need to change it. So choose your extrude, and if you look to the side, you'll now see you have a little miniature version of your material. Click that once. If you double click it, something else happens, so don't do that. Just click it once. And what you'll see are these settings. The setting we're after is called projection. How is this image projected onto the surface? Think of it like an overhead projector, basically. And the easiest, most idiot-proof one there is would be cubic. In other words, this is simply going to take that bit of artwork we used, and it's going to place it on the fronts, on the side, on the top, on the bottom. It's kind of going to make this cube of texture. Anyway, it's the easiest option. Just go for cubic. And immediately we can see we've got a much more even spread of that texture. Now, if you think it's too large or too small, Feel free to play around with these length settings. There's one for U and one for V. This is basically just horizontal and vertical. So if I would like my texture to be smaller, I could set these down to maybe 50%. And now I've got a much finer little texture on the surface. But just use whatever size you like. There you go. I should probably leave that one there. Okay, so we've got our logo, we've got our sort of roughness on there. Let's give it a render and see what we get. So let's click this first clapperboard video. Well, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it? We've got a problem. The problem is cinema is going to reflect whatever is in the 3D world. And unfortunately, the only thing we have in our 3D world at the minute is just black darkness. There's nothing surrounding our text. So although you get this nice preview in the editor, that's not how it actually comes out. So the last thing we've got to do is wrap a panoramic photo around the entire world so that our text logo has something to reflect. Okay, we're going to need two things. First, we're going to need to wrap sort of the universe around our project. If we come over to this icon here, one with a little blue grid, hold down your mouse button on it, and I want you to choose sky. Please don't go for physical sky, that's something else entirely. Just go for sky, and that will now have wrapped this giant grey world around us. But we've got to choose a picture. What should the world look like? So what you're going to want to do at this point, jump back onto Google and go find a panoramic photo. If you want a bit of advice on where you can go to get some decent ones, let's just grab a web browser again. Go somewhere like textures.com. They will have somewhere in here, they will have a skies section. And nope, that's not the page I wanted. Where are you? Well, that's hiding somewhere. I tell you what, let's just Google it. Panoramic texture on textures.com. Well, anyway, either way, what you're really after is just one of these kind of images here. Just a sky with some clouds, or you can go for an indoor image. If you want a bit of advice about how to find these, if you Google HDRI panorama, this will usually get you a nice selection of images you can wrap around your scene. So just grab one of these pictures, or sometimes they come as a zip file you can download and decompress. But again, I'll leave that up to you. But hey, I do have some ready-made ones. So once you've got your picture, make another new material. And on this new material, open it up. And all we're going to do is we're going to add this panoramic photo to the color of the object. So click on the word color, and then click that giant button in the middle where it says texture. But this time, I'm not going to add a picture of some fabric. I'm going to add a nice panoramic photo of, I don't know, an industrial estate maybe. You can now drag this material onto the background sky. And there we go. So we've now got this sort of a background image wrapped around. We now have something to actually reflect in the surface. So when we actually do our rendering, hit that render icon at the top. Ba-ba-bum. There we go. We actually have a nice reflection going on with our logo. One slight issue though. I probably don't want to see this big, dirty, blurry photo in the background of my picture. I wanted it there because it makes a nice reflection. I didn't want to actually have to see it. So one of the last steps we're going to do is just hiding this background. So once you've got it looking okay, let's just go have a look over here. So is that right? Yeah, that's fine. I might just make my my material larger again. I think I preferred it when it was back at 100% size. Okay, what we're going to do to fix this background, make sure the sky is selected in your list of objects. Go to what we call tags. That's all these silly little icons to the side. And we're going to add a Cinema 4D compositing tag. This tag lets you cheat and fake an object. So I want the sky because it makes reflections, but I don't want to actually see the sky. So down in your settings, where it says seen by camera, well, you can probably guess, turn it off. So there we go. We have a sky. It will affect our reflections. And when I hit render, I no longer have to actually see it. Okay, so let's get this image out of the software, shall we? So we like our logo, it's got a nice material, it's all nice and reflective. Let's actually get the image out of the software so we can put it in a video, website, whatever it is you're going to use it for. Okay, at the top of the screen, we have 3 clapperboards. The first one is just for quick tests. The second one will be the final export, but we can't do that just yet. We need to change 1 or 2 little settings. So could you go to the third clapperboard? These are your render settings. This is where we can choose the size, resolution, quality, the important bits basically. So what you should see first of all is the output page. This lets you choose what resolution should the artwork be at. So type in the size you need here. You know, if you're going to make a title screen for a YouTube video, maybe go for 1920 by 1080. That'll be like your full 1080 HD resolution. Or choose whatever else you need. And the only other thing I'll suggest you do is improve the quality. When I do my tests, do you notice how sort of grainy and sort of pixelated a lot of this stuff goes? We can fix that. In your render settings, come down to anti-aliasing. And the very first setting, change this to best mode. The best anti-aliasing will fix all those horrible little pixels. So I can close that down, do another quick little test render. Might take another moment or two. There we go, that's better. I can see much more of my texture on the front surface there now. So all that's left for us to do is frame it up, get it looking nice, get the angle that you like. And when you're happy and you want to actually render this out, hit the middle clapperboard. By the way, at some point, don't forget to actually save your project, otherwise you might lose everything. Anyway, let's hit this middle button here. Here's the final render. You can, of course, pan around this window as it processes. Give it a couple of seconds. Right, good. There we go. So there's our image. There's our artwork. All that's left to do now is actually save the image out. So if you're happy with this, if it all looks good, snip up here, go to File, Save As. And there you go. You're golden. Just pick a file format. If you're not sure what you should be using in here, a fairly safe idiot-proof option is to set the format to JPEG and then hit OK. And Cinema will ask you where you want to save your file and you're finished. Okay, so I hope that's been useful. If you want to go any further with this, I do a lot of other videos. Go have a look at some of those on the YouTube channel or have a look at my website, 3dfluff.com. And yeah, best of luck with it. If you want any other videos, if you've got any other suggestions of things you'd like me to show you, drop me a message. Just send me a private message on either Twitter or YouTube and I'll see what I can do. Okay, so this has been Mash from 3D Fluff for now. Till the next one.